Check, check. Good morning, everyone. We are so glad you are here. We are going to get started. We have a special presentation for you. But before that begins, I'm going to have everybody stand up and come over to this set of pews. That would be super awesome just for this Sabbath school portion. Young Adult Sabbath School is going to be in the sanctuary today, so if you're looking for the Adult Sabbath School, that's going to be back in the chapel just for this Sabbath only. We're going to be having our special Young Adult Sabbath School program here in the sanctuary just until 10:30, so if you're looking for the Adult Sabbath School, that's going to be happening in the chapel. We're so glad you guys are here, and then we're going to do a little icebreaker to get things started. So I need you to group up in a group of 3 to 5. Group up, stand up. If you need to stretch out, but stand up and get into a group of 3 to 5, and I need you to discuss the favorite thing, your favorite thing about the place that you live. Your favorite thing about the place that you live. Or Florida. If you're visiting, your favorite thing about Florida so far. That's all right. There we go. Share names. Make sure you guys know each other. If you're watching online by yourself, just write it down in a journal. That's all right, too. We are glad you are joining us online. You can type it in the comments what your absolute favorite thing about the place that you live is. Please feel free to interact online. We're super glad that you're joining us, and we have an awesome program for you today. All right, now I need you to get into a new group of 3 to 5. It can't have more than 2 people who were in the previous group, all right? So scramble up, get into a new group of 3 to 5, meet someone new. A new group of 3 to 5, it's time to get moving. Get moving so you can chat with someone new. And your question is, who is your favorite person to travel with? Who is your favorite person to travel with? And why? If you're watching online, go ahead and comment that online. Who is your favorite person? Who's your favorite person to travel with, and why? Who is your favorite person to travel with, and why? Don't forget to share your names as well. All right, final question. I need you to scramble up one more time. A new group of 3 to 5. A new group of 3 to 5. Scramble up one more time. Somebody you haven't met before, preferably if possible. Introduce yourself, share names. And our final question is, what makes you feel the most welcome when you go somewhere new? What makes you feel the most welcome when you go somewhere new? What makes you feel the most welcome when you go somewhere new? If you're watching online, feel free to comment on the video what makes you feel the most welcome when you go somewhere new. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for participating. You can go ahead and take a seat, but I need you to take a seat as close to the platform as possible. We want this to feel warm and welcoming. So go ahead and take your seat as close to the platform as possible. We'll really pack these pews out. If you sit next to someone you don't know, that's all right. You can shake their hand. You can lean over and introduce yourself. Feel free to sit up close. Come on all the way up. We got 2 seats up here. No, please don't take those seats. Yeah, there we go. We got special extra comfy seats. Awesome. You guys can make your way all the way in. We're going to start the program here now. I'm going to invite Dr. Alan Martin up here in a second, and he's going to share with us just a little tidbit of what we have going on this weekend and this special presentation program that we have happening for the Sabbath School portion. So with no further ado, Dr. Martin, we're so glad you're here.
Sabbath peace to all of you. Thank you so very much for being with us this morning. I want to send you greetings from the North American Division. For those of you that are acquainted with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, you realize that we're organized around divisions, and the North American Division comprises of the United States, Canada, Bermuda, Micronesia, and Guam. Now, one of the things that we realize full well is the importance and the value of next generations, what we call emerging adults, to our church. They're the vitality of our church. We see them at summer camps. They do a vast majority of our short-term mission trips, and they populate many of our institutions, including our higher ed institutions. But there's a particular reason why we're here, is that the Spring Meadows Seventh-day Adventist Church has been for a long period of time a place where young adults spontaneously find community and feel like they belong. And that's why we brought what we call the Southern Union Young Adult Life Tour to your doorstep. It's important that you know that what you're doing here is an inspiration, especially for those of you that are older generations, you're no longer in the young adult set, is that there's a culture of embrace and welcome that you have here that is bringing young adults to your church that is an anomaly across the North American Division. So the Southern Union, thank you to the Taylors for helping host us here. We've been to 2 other unions previous to this particular site. As we go through the life component, young adult life component, it's important for us to understand what is working in the local church. So this morning, thank you, Pastor Chandler, for doing an interview. For those of you that are watching online, thank you so very much for joining us. We want to let people know this isn't rocket science, but it does take intentionality. So Pastor Chandler will be sharing with us some best practices that are here at Spring Meadows Church. And for those of you that are part of Spring Meadows Church, it's like, oh yeah, of course, that's what we do. But for many of our churches, especially those churches that are languishing and are looking for next generation to be a part of them, the insights that we shared during this time, a very important time, giving us practical ideas, is going to be so very valuable. So thank you so very much for having us. I want to encourage you, especially those of you that call this your home church. We have about 140, 150 individuals from all across the Southern Union, some folks from the Carolinas, some folks from Georgia and Atlanta, other different places that have come specifically here. If you see them, greet them. Let them know that you know that they're here and that you know that they may not be a part of this particular family, but they can certainly still feel at home. So thank you for having us, and I look forward to these interviews.
As Pastor Allen said, I am Pastor Chandler Tarbox. Just to give you guys a little scoop of who I am, I have served at Spring Meadows Church for 3.5 years. I came here initially as the youth pastor and then transitioned to the young adult pastor role. And it's been a super amazing privilege to serve here. The young adult ministry was already rolling when I got here. And so I feel I have a unique perspective. I feel like I've been able to audit the culture that existed before I got here. And also, the Lord has enabled me to be able to participate in continuing the momentum. And so I'd like to invite Renee Fogg up to the stage. We're going to have just a short conversation. And as she comes up, I'll share a couple facts about her and how she's helped build this ministry.
Good morning.
So Renee has been leading the young adult ministry for just coming up on a decade. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. I would love to just hear a little bit of the background of how things got rolling, specifically the passion in your heart, and just some of the first days of the young adult ministry here at Spring Meadows.
Well, our daughter went to college, and she would tell you that that I had to get a hobby. So, because after being so involved in her life, and I became noticing, where are the young adults in our church family? And there was a couple young adults that came, and there was another lady, too, that helped me get this started, Monica Lopez, one of the pastor's wives that we had at the time, and she's fantastic. But there was a couple young adults that had come, and their mom had shared with me, Renee, they're looking for a community, young adults, and we at the time had a potluck over at the gym, right behind us here. And I was just looking around, I'm like, where are they? Where'd they go? Like, okay. So it kind of was a light bulb to me to look into that and find out and to see where they're at and look for them, being intentional and looking for them.
Yeah, no, I love that organic start, that it started kind of in your heart, seeing that there was a gap, seeing that there weren't the young adults that you felt that there could be. And so you shared with me a little bit that a lot of prayer and talking to Monica went into it. Tell me a little bit about how you got the momentum rolling, maybe some of the social events and some of the intentionality that went into making the young adults feel that they belonged.
Yes. We had gotten together, so it has taken a lot of prayer, like I said, a lot of prayer. And when I was talking to her, and then she came to me too, she said, the Lord keeps just putting that little bug in my ear all the time. And I said, I'm thinking about it too. And I just feel like I wanted to touch into the young people, because I know that as our kids, I have a 29-year-old, 26-year-old now, but if they were at other churches and everything, I would want their church family, if they didn't live here, to reach out to them, embrace them. I think it takes a community. It's not just because they're at an age that's so critical, because I think I was just sharing with Alan and just earlier too about where they're at an age where they can come to church or not. They've been living under our roof, and at that time, they turn 18, and then what? And there's so much they're getting hit with school and just work and their careers and friendships, and so they're going through all of that. So we thought, let's get together and maybe find some, come up with some ideas to get together for them to have a safe place to come, hang out, play games, just any kind of an event. Church picnics, that's a big thing that we actually love to do for them, provide food. And when we first started it, I remember the first time we were walking into the fellowship hall, and Monica and I were saying, you know what, if we only have five young adults show up, it's okay. We're gonna keep doing it. And if we have, 20, that's great too. This is God's thing. And just to provide those safe places, it's about Jesus and making him the first, foremost, and making these kids to me, will always be kids to me, a priority. And just reaching out to them. And I know a lot of times when we get together, we're looking for them. We try to, hug on them, love on them. We're here for them.
No, I love that. And I think what you shared about the value of creating a space where young adults can play games together and where young adults can have lunch together and get to know each other. Can you share a little bit just about where you've seen the benefit of young adults connecting, not just with the church body, but with one another, with their peers?
Well, sometimes too, it's nice. They like to come and, be with a friend and bring their friends. And it's good for them we like to connect them with other people that they may not know. And you never know, they have friends. And so we open it up. Hey, bring your friends if you want to. It's open to whoever you'd like. We'd love for you to connect and there again, be here for you. So.
No, I love that. There's something special that we put on a couple times a year called home gatherings. And home gatherings is something that you've worked out and refined. And so I think it would provide tremendous value to those who are visiting us, wanting to know how to connect, what home gatherings is and how it started and kind of what it looks like now.
You know, we did start doing that after a couple of years in. And we love it. It's a lot of fun. But we found, and where we feel like the young adults, so they can connect to the older generation, us, and how that find those connections, it's good for us to connect with them. And it builds friendships. And if we have we'll ask some hosts, we'll ask some church members to host, and then we say, hey, feel free if you want one of your friends to co-host with you. Sometimes they have 2 or 3 co-hosts. And let us know how many young adults that you can take. Some of them can take 10, some can take 5, and some can take 25. We don't, So, and then we ask the young adults to sign up, because we do have to have them sign up for that a little bit, although they'll even, at the very end, Friday, Sabbath, last minute, it's okay. Come on, we've learned to try to be flexible, so if they bring another 2 or 3 friends, that's totally fine. And we try to find some similarities the best we can. There is a lot of intentionality in this. We've tried to find, there may be a PT who is hosting, and we know of, there is Gabby or whoever it is, they're in PT school, or anybody that they can connect with this host. And we know of a couple friends that she's going to bring, and then we also connect them with other young adults that we hope that they don't know but can get to know. So we try to have some common ground, but yet not, but there are some differences as well. And I think what warms my heart too, to see them the following Sabbath, they connect. We're watching and we're seeing how they connect with those co-hosts and the older generations, and they love it just as much as the young adults.
Yeah, everybody knows the value of food for young adult events.
Yes.
But one thing that has been amazing for me to see as I've stepped into the young adult ministry here at Spring Meadows is the deep level of intentionality, that we're not just sending anyone anywhere. It's who can they connect with? Who at the church, what church member could be someone they can look up to, that they can be mentored by? And as you shared, it's been a beautiful thing that home gatherings happens one Sabbath, the next Saturday in the sanctuary, that church member and that young adult are greeting each other warmly. They have a relationship after that point that it's not just the young adult ministry that's thriving, it's the entire church body, that the value of that one potluck a couple times a year, which is really easy to pull off if you're just starting to get your young adult ministry rolling, right?
Yes.
I've seen Renee spend hours texting 100 young adults, making sure that they know what host they're going to, what their names are, a little thing about them, and then and texting the hosts about every single young adult that's going to enter into their home. And so that level of intentionality, if you're starting with a small young adult group, is much easier to scale, and it's beautiful to see the way that Jesus works through that level of intentionality.
Yes, and it does give them, the host, it gives them an idea. On Friday, sometimes I don't send it till Friday because there's so many changes, and we have to learn at our age to be a little more flexible with the young adult generation, because sometimes they don't always commit, we don't always know with their schedules until the last minute. And sometimes, with the food, well, how many do I plan on? Try to find, it could be haystacks, paper plates. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And when they go over there, sometimes they'll have, and they will provide the food, so the young adults don't have to worry about that. But that's where the importance of having co-hosts come into play. And sometimes they'll sing in the afternoon. They're playing a little icebreaker game, just somehow to get those connections going. But Friday night, sometimes when I'm sending the list, I try to share a little bit about each one that we know of. So-and-so's bringing so-and-so, they're in school, so-and-so's, married or dating, or, has been going through, just a little bit of tidbits about them, and I try to give a little bit to them about the hosts, so they can get to know them a little bit, like, where are we going, what is this about? So
yeah, we're wanting to make sure to share something really, really practical with those who are watching online and with those who are here maybe from another church. But what I've seen this facilitate, the intentionality, the specifics of what kind of texts go out, is the ministry of Jesus pulling our young adults into a place that they belong, where they are seen. And I think one aspect of that's kind of adjacent to home gatherings is your contact list. And when a young adult comes in, somehow their contact makes it to me. Do you want to tell me a little bit, and to you, do you want to tell me a little bit about the intentionality that goes into that?
I do. I see a few young adults grinning at me because they know that I I'm looking out for them if I see them. Hey, let's get your name and your number. Where do you work? Where do you live? What's that? Just anything about them, how old they are. I also will try to put their picture into my phone. So that way, then when I let Chandler knows, he has an idea, hey, be on the lookout for so-and-so. Or where they're from, even sometimes where their friends are. So my phone, I'm so thankful that it has not blown up yet. So it's about time I'll probably be getting a new phone. But it is so important to me, and that list, what it does, we can go through as we're texting them, and I know Chandler's been texting too, but I'd love to go through each one. I see the importance of like flock note and different things, but they only take so many characters, so many words that you can put into that. I think the personal texts, and I love it when they respond to me. I'll get a heart back, a thumbs up, hey, thank you. I mean, they are amazing. And I find that texting them, I've had to learn to text, and because that's what they do. And sometimes you hear from them later, you don't know, you're just different, working and everything. But I love I used to have a list, but I found that it didn't work as well for me because their lives are changing constantly. They're graduating, they're moving, they're all different kinds of things. So I actually try to keep as much information in my phone. And then that way, if I'm at church or whatever, I'm scanning. But, okay, here's so-and-so. Or if I think of the first name, I got to get the last name. But it will pop up in my phone. The first, that's it, But I feel that list is important because I call it my prayer list. I believe that's what I even have on the list as prayer list. We do not share that list with anyone. I also had, found and learned that they don't like their information given out. They're like, who are you going to give this to? No, we don't share it. I've had people ask me for it. But building that trust with them. We're here for them. We're praying for them. And it's very important to me to keep that trust between them. But as I go through the list and I'm texting him, and I'm like, I haven't seen him in a long time. How's Mary? I'm thinking about her. So it's making me learn the last names, first names, and everything as I go on. And stop and pray. Sometimes I'll stop and pray for that person or send them another text. And yes, sometimes I try to call. We send them birthday wishes. I also put their birthdays in our phone. And going back to the home gatherings, sometimes we'll find the age. Okay, they're like 24 or they're 28 and putting those age groups, and sometimes we split that up too. It is a lot in some sense, but it is a lot of intentionality, and it brings me joy to see them connect. There was a church in Kentucky when my husband and I first got married. We went to a small town in Litchfield, Kentucky, and another one in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and we were the only young adults at that time. We had just recently gotten married, and he was there for his job. But I'll never forget, it was the older people that came to us and embraced us, took us in, gave us food, and they had the best potlucks, I tell you, because they were homegrown food. But it meant and spoke to us. And I never realized it at the time how important that was until now. But I'm hoping that a lot of these young adults, and please feel free to ask them. We're not perfect. There's things we're still learning, and I've also learned that we can be teachable. We need to be teachable. Mike and I, my husband and I, have mentors as well. And we're hearing what the young adults are wanting, and the young adults, but being teachable and learning. And I think another important thing is coming together to worship together we're embracing them into the family of God. This is a family. And instead of dividing and having a certain type of, worship and everything, we try to come together. We've worked really hard to do that. Not that we're compromising on anything. I think I'm getting off on another subject, but compromising. No one's compromising. We're come together to where we can find common ground, worshiping together, instead of, dividing and everything, so we can support each other. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And that was a great divergence, because that's something that, as I've stepped in here as pastor, I've seen that Sabbath morning, seeing that intergenerational connection. It's not just the young adults congregating together the entire time, that there's intergenerational mixing. And that's kind of a product of this intentionality through home gatherings. Quick survey among our young adults. Who has received a text from Renee at some point? I should see everybody pretty much. Yep,
yeah,
everybody who's a local
some new
here.
Ones out there for visiting. But
There's very few young adults who can walk into this church without me and Renee receiving their contact. And so a message maybe to, if you're visiting or if you're watching online, there are young adults who walk through your door. And sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable if they're new to say, hey, welcome, can I grab your contact? But if you let them know, hey, it's not anything weird, we just want you to be informed. Absolutely. If we have events, we want you to be connected. No pressure. We make sure to communicate that to all of our young adults. Please, if you have a test and you can't come, know that we are not holding it against you. You don't have to come to anything, but we want you to be informed of what we have. There's other like-minded, God-seeking individuals who you can connect with if you choose to. If you get plugged into another church, we love that. We just want to make sure if you're looking for community, you know you can belong at Spring Meadows if you're interested in it.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, these young adults are fantastic. They are open to receiving. They love, help and encouragement and prayer, and it's just, I love seeing them grow, and we're all still growing and learning, and it's about Jesus. We're here for Jesus, and just seeing them get together, playing games, hanging out. It's a good group, and I just see it's so important. And it can be done at any church, no matter what size, no matter what. It doesn't take a bunch of equipment. It doesn't take that. It's loving on them. It's reaching out to them. Hey, how are you doing? I'm thinking about you this week. How can I pray for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's been one of the most beautiful things for me personally as I've stepped into Spring Meadows. I took theology classes, I took preaching classes, but I got taught at Spring Meadows the value of intentionality, the value of reaching out and communicating with people and making sure that they're celebrated, that they're seen, that they feel that they belong. I'm not gonna lie, it is hard work. It takes a couple hours to work through our list of young adults to make sure they're invited. But I will tell you, that is what built the young adult ministry at Spring Meadows. The intentionality and the fact that they're seen and that they belong.
It is, and I think, just as the older generation, all of us, and tapping into them. And I have to tell, just with the young adults, there are your parents. It is your family. People are praying for you every day. You may not know it, but let me tell you, they are. And I know when I had kids at the time, and you will find out one day, I was just sharing with them, I thought, by the time they're 18, okay, whew, I'm just, okay, that's it. No, it's not it. I learned it keeps you on your knees because we love our kids and we love you. We care about you. And we are always just praying for you constantly because we want to see you in the kingdom, all of us. And these ladies, I have to share something a little bit about the potluck, we call it the potluck, although we're providing the food. A lot of thoughtfulness, being intentional. I love that. Little tidbits here and there that I see. You will find at lunch today that we are going to have some of our pastors and some of our youth directors are going to be serving the young adults. And it is so important. Yes, they could go through line, get their food, that's it. This also takes a little bit longer. The line might be a little bit long. It might take another 5-10 minutes. But we do that on purpose. And I know sometimes, but it's so nice to see the young adults in that line communicating with people in front of them, behind them. And also, when they come through line, and I know the pastors, you can ask our pastors how much that we'd love for you guys to serve them, because they're seeing the face of our church family. They're seeing who they are, and you are valued. And to get those connections, get your pastors involved, because that means a whole lot to them. And knowing you, to see who you are, just that 2-minute, 3-minute, and you'll say, oh, I know you, and if you don't know, and they will share later. And these ladies in the church who are in the kitchen are fantastic. They are such a blessing and have a heart. They get it. They are doing this for them and for our church family.
No, thank you so much, Renee. First of all, thank you for your heart for young adults. Thank you for your ministry at Spring Meadows for the last decade. And you guys, she's going to be here all weekend. So if you have questions, please, please, please find her, ask her, pick her brain. She is a gold mine, a resource to be able to share what it looks like to intentionally love our young adults. Thank you so much, Renee.
Thank you so much. And thank you for loving on them, and I love them.
And I'm going to welcome Xavier Moss up to the stage. Xavier is one of our young adult leaders. Over the last 7 years or so, he has built a young adult Bible study program that meets every single Friday, and we're going to chat a little bit about that. Can you tell us a little bit about what your life looks like now? Give us a really short deep dive into your business, and then and your painting, and then we'll go into the ministry stuff.
So you caught me on a good day. I'm not covered in paint.
There we go.
As a profession, I'm an artist and an art educator. So I'm teaching at 3 different places right now. And then I'm getting ready for the Maitland Art Festival, so come out. Yeah, just balancing those. And then young adult Bible study is always on the mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So young adult Bible study. Give us a breakdown of what it looks like now. Give us a snapshot of that. And then we'll go to the early days.
So we call it YABS, Young Adult Bible Study. We meet every Friday except for the first Fridays of the month where we have Vespers here at church. And it's just very intentional and pertinent conversation amongst our young adults.
Yes, yeah, and it's been really valuable for me as the pastor to come in, and this was already rolling when I got here. And so every Friday, whether I was there or not, whether I planned it or not, there were young adults meeting in homes discussing the Bible. And so let's go to the early days. How did it start? Paint for me that picture.
So 7 years ago, that's my dramatic movie voice. I had just come back from UF, go Gator. So I came back home, and Renee was already well and rolling with Monica with I came back and it was kind of like that SpongeBob meme of who are you people? And I was gone and none of these young adults were here, and then suddenly there were young adults, and I was like, oh, okay. And then we had Pastor Jonathan Cobb was the young adult pastor at that time. And once a month, we were having these Friday night Bible studies for young adults. And so at UF, we had Adventist Campus Ministries, and I'd gotten really used to every Friday night, being with other young adults. And so I was kind of missing that when I came home, so I queried. I was like, hey, Pastor John, could we have every week Bible study? I know we were having once a month, and it's awesome. Could we do every week? And at the time, I think he wasn't just young adult, he was youth, and there was a lot on his plate. So he was like, yes, and you can figure out the logistics of that. And I was like, okay, I'm a wide-eyed 23-year-old. What in the world is my oyster? What can I do? And I was an RA for 2 years at UF, so I'd gotten really used to the logistics of event planning and whatnot. I was like, all right, well, I just got to reach out to some people, see who wants to, lead out in Bible study and host Bible study. And very quickly I learned it's we don't ask about leading in Bible study anymore. We ask about facilitating in Bible study, because that word lead is a trigger for so many people who are I need to have an MDiv before I can, on Friday night, talk about the Lord. And it's no, you just need to be able to talk, and some socialization skills are preferable, but even then we can work with you. And yeah.
No, thank you for painting that picture of how it got rolling. Tell me a little bit about how we come up with what we're going to study.
So, this is an active development, but it has been, like, I'm the Young Adult Bible Study Coordinator, so usually it looks like we have a Young Adult Bible Study Committee. I know, Adventists love their committees. And it's like a group of some of the facilitators, so we meet and we kind of plan for 16 weeks at a time. That's 4 months for those of you who don't want to do math on Sabbath, I can talk to. And we kind of meet and we gauge what conversations were people like really getting invested in. What conversations did, like, there was like, here's the thesis, and then we got it done in 20 minutes and it was just crickets and awkward. And we're like, all right, it seems like people are wanting to talk more about like this subject or this issue. How can we find scriptural bases that like address this and talk about that and extend it out? So then once we do that with the committee, Chandler and I meet up and we have a caffeine-fueled spiritual encounter of 2 hours. And it's just us like flipping through scripture, and it's like, it seems like this was the topic that most people were wanting to talk about, lining up like in scripture. Where are stories and accounts that like speak to that? And what are questions and specific like subtopics that over the course of like 16 weeks we can talk about in that issue?
Yeah, and so share with me some of the topics that we've discussed in the last couple of years. Sorry to put you on the spot. I can help you out if you want to phone a friend.
A walk down memory lane. If any young adults like remember one that I missed, feel free to shout them out. We did emotions in scripture, which seems like mad basic, but like when we got to grief, woo, there was a lot of hard questions that we talked about. Like one of the questions like I still remember was somebody was like, as a Christian, we kind of feel this burden to say something in the midst of grief, and it's like, it's okay if you don't say something and you're just there. Case in point, Job's 3 friends before they open their mouths. So like emotions in scripture was one. Right now we've been doing like a year-long 3-step one. So it was, you're gonna have to help me with it.
It was connection,
and then service, and then now we're in discipleship. Other ones we've had, yeah,
no, that's perfect. That's perfect. That gives a beautiful snapshot, and we saw kind of the overarching view, and the example of Job was exactly the type of study that we do. And so, as you shared so far, it started out just kind of you seeing a need, and being willing to step up. And then as it rolled and as it progressed, it became more and more fine-tuned. Do you want to share with me a little bit about that and what that process looked like? And then also what the structure looks like right now with the facilitators and hosts and that dynamic?
Yeah, so when Pastor John was like, hey, you can do that, I was like, alrighty. I was willing to do it. Like, I think my parents always raised me to don't just point out a problem in the church, be willing to be part of the solution. I think more of us could do that. If I'm spilling all the tea today. Yeah, that was just, I was like, okay, I see this, and this is something I would like to be invested in, so I will invest my time and energy in that stead. And so it was a lot at first because there wasn't a YABS committee at the beginning. It was Zave and Pastor John. And so it was a lot of like calling a lot of my peers and being like, hey, do you want to lead Bible? We hadn't figured out facilitation yet. I was like, do you want to lead Bible study? And then they're like, no. And then it was like, oh, okay. And then we're planning for 16 weeks at a time. So then when you get like 8 no's in a row, it's pretty discouraging. And you're like, is it me? Is it me, Lord? Did I say something wrong? But over time, there were a couple who stepped up and were like, yeah, I can regularly facilitate. And then slowly but surely, we took away the stigma of like, you have to be super prepared in leading study, because at the end of the day, it's not you giving a sermonette, it's you having guidepost questions to guide a discussion. Ideally, like even in our Sabbath schools now, the facilitators kind of have a joke that there's the 80-20 rule. So it's like you should be speaking 20% of the time. The other 80% should be engagement with peers. And you were talking about the organization of our, I brought notes.
Yes, sir.
Get ready. I know it, but like just in case I mess up. So, all right. So I got the YABS coordinator. And then I'm responsible for chairing the YABS committee, and that's a group made up of the current facilitators, those who facilitate, not lead studies. And then we work alongside the young adult pastor to plan the curriculum for 4 months at a time. That committee meets, and each member picks 1 month of Fridays to be responsible for. So like, we're about to plan for January through April. So each like, let's say I would pick the month of January. I'm responsible for reaching out to facilitators and hosts for every Friday in January. And then we have a master Google Calendar that everything goes in, and we set a deadline for, all right, let's have confirmed facilitators and hosts by this date. We all upload the information, and then I create this calendar that some people have been like on Instagram, like getting a magnifying glass to like see like all the information, but it's like, I'm also, like I was a teacher for Seminole County for 5 years, so like I love lesson plans. So like all the information, like when it is, where it is there, and without fail, you will be asked like, where is it again? And like part of me is like, but you know where to find this information. But then I'm like, how often do I like do this to God? Where I was like, where's the information? And he's like, bruh, look at the book. So yeah, that's kind of how we're organized, and we're actively always seeking new facilitators. So folks who like, sometimes it's just being part of the discussion and you're like, this person is here consistently and has really good insight. And then you like approach them and you're like, have you ever like thought about like facilitating? And sometimes they're like, no. But sometimes we are willing to even like co-facilitate and be like, we're not just gonna like throw you out there. Like, if that's something you wanna like try out, but don't want all the pressure to be on you, like we're willing to do that. Or even like co-host, because the hosts are just as important as the facilitators. If we don't have a place to study, we ain't studying. So yeah.
No, and thank you for sharing a little bit into the weeds of what the structure looked like, because that's really important for us all to grasp. I think in young adult ministry, sometimes our primary objective is to get people to show up, which, praise the Lord, we want as many young adults as we can connected with this loving community. However, God calls us to make disciples. To make disciples. And one thing that's been really beautiful for me to see as a pastor is that you as young adult Bible study coordinator are discipling those on the committee. And we have facilitators and hosts every 4 months that are being discipled into what does it mean to take into our hands young adult ministry. And then every single Friday, those facilitators and hosts are discipling those who show up to the Bible study. And so when we say, what is our measure of success in a young adult ministry, we want as many people there as possible, 100%. 100%. We want people connected to the love of God. However, are we discipling our young adults? And so for me to see every single Friday, 10 to 15 to 25, sometimes 35, young adults in a young adult home, reading the Word of God, discussing, tackling hard issues. How do we grieve? How do we sit in silence with someone who's lost a loved one? It's the most beautiful thing to see how God has used you, how God has used the facilitators, the hosts, the team to really accomplish discipleship at every level. That being said, at the end of this year, you're stepping down from the young adult Bible study team. You're gonna step down from young adult Bible study coordinator. Share with me how that fits into discipleship.
Surprise! Oh, no.
Everybody knows that Spring Meadows is not some big reveal.
No, that's been something I've honestly like been praying about, because it's been 7 years that I've been in like that stead. So I just hit thunderous 30 this year, and I was like, a new decade, brave new world. So I just been thinking about, I was 23 when I started in this stead, and I want to provide the opportunity for somebody else to experience like the growth in not only like logistical skill set, but like spirituality that I've been able to have in this position. And I think part of being a good leader is knowing when it's time to trust somebody else to lead. And so it's like, I'm gonna spill some more tea. Just as our church, and I think just not only Adventists, but I think Christians as a whole, church succession, we're not historically the best at. And I'll unpack that for you. What I mean is this, like, we'll have like Brother Barry or Sister Steph. It's like, oh, they've been, doing XYZ for like the last 3 decades. And it's like, bet, they're good at it. But then suddenly they either get spiritually burnt out, which is, it's not just a millennial occurrence, that happens for all humans. Or the more morbid one is like they pass away or something like that happens. And then this ushers in like a spiritual crisis of like, oh shoot, none of us know how to do what they've been doing for the past 3 decades. None of us bothered to ask, or there wasn't that mentorship of what they were doing. So then it becomes very much like a game of holy tag of like, who has the most parallel skill set to what they did that we can tag into that position. And it's like, you're it. And so I think part of actively combating that is like mentorship and discipleship, which we've been talking a lot about at our Friday nights. And if that means like me stepping back from that position so that I can like mentor others to step into it, and like they have some like on-the-job training, and there's like the passing of the torch there, like I'm all for it.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that so much. And even me as a pastor stepping into the ministry here, you helped train me, hey, this is the culture, this is what we do. And then now as we look to pass the torch from you to another individual, we actually had to make it a couple individuals. As you know, in ministry, as a position, as a ministry forms, it forms organically based around the talents of a person. And so when Xavier wanted to step down, we had to get 3 positions in order to fill that role, because people are gifted in different ways. And so it's been such a privilege to see how God has used the young adult Bible study to be an arm of discipleship within the young adult ministry. We're out of time, but I have one more question I want to ask you. To any young adults who are out there who see a gap and feel that someone should step in, what advice would you have for them?
I prepared a dissertation for this question exactly. So I'm going to read, but these are my words. So, in the immortal words of a certain green Jedi master, do or do not, there is no try. As a member of the millennial generation, I think there's this assumption of being non-committal in our responsibilities. So we in our Lincoln Park branded oppositional defiance, whether this is conscious or subconscious, we decide to say bet to those assumptions and be non-committal, seeking opportunities to volunteer or lead in ministry. And then now we have the fallout. We have young adults leaving the church, and we have young adults complaining about feeling like they're not being trusted with positions or responsibilities. To avoid that fallout, everybody has to fall in. The previous generations have to step up as mentors. The next generations must be willing to be mentored. At the end of the day, it's about humility. It's about surrendering the pretense of having it all together and letting God work through our apprehensions and inexperience so that God can make us something more beautiful than we could ever have imagined. So, back to the question, if you see a problem in your church or an area where innovation can happen, don't just be a finger pointer repeatedly voicing your discontent, admonishing what's being done and loudly saying how you could do better. Pray, step up, and step aside so God can be your guide.
Thank you, Xavier. Thank you, Xavier. There we go. Guys, Xavier's going to be around all weekend. Please pick his brain, get specifics, hear his heart, hear about how he's using his painting to glorify God. Both Xavier and Renee are amazing, gifted leaders. One of the things that's been so beautiful, me pastoring the young adult ministry here at Spring Meadows, is seeing leaders using their gift. Renee is just the absolute best at intentionality. When it comes to organization, when it comes to building curriculum, when it comes to everything that young adult Bible study is, Xavier has stepped in. And so at your respective ministries, it's not going to look like this. It's not going to look like Spring Meadows. It's going to look like your leaders, your young adults, your church family leading the young adults, using their gifts to glorify God and to disciple young adults, to make them feel that they belong and to let them know that your church is a place that they can walk in, be safe, and be a part of the family. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for Sabbath School. That concludes our Sabbath School service. Service is going to start in about 15 minutes, so if you want to grab a drink or use the restroom, you can file out into the lobby. We're going to say a quick prayer, and then you are dismissed. Father in heaven, we praise you for your love for us. We praise you for gifting our churches with church members who have hearts for the young adults, God. They see the gap and they just don't know what to do. God, put on their heart to use their gifts, whatever that looks like, God. Help them to step into the gap. God, to our young adults, I pray that you'll empower them to bravely step up. God, even though it's scary, even though it's new, God, encourage them, fill them with faith and strength to step into the newness. God, you are calling us to be a light to the world as young adults, God. We want to be your heart, your conduit of love and compassion to the world. Lord, let that be. Let your will be done. I pray that you'll bless the rest of this service. God, bless this weekend. Let the connections that need to be made, the friendships, the learning, the growth, Lord. Build your church on this earth, and let this be a moment that contributes to that. In your beautiful name, amen. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you back at 10:45.